Good evening and welcome to Ridgecrest Talk. This is the Thursday night edition with me, Al Huey, and my partner, Robert Eierman. And we're privileged again to have with us Mr. Don Zdeba from the Indian Wells Valley Water District. He's the CEO, I guess.
General Manager.
General Manager. And,
thanks again for coming in.
Yeah, thanks again,
with
Don. It's good to have you on the show. Obviously, we want to talk about water. And I guess we'll address the most recent article that was put out regarding a meeting here a week or so ago.
A couple of weeks ago, we had our annual board workshop.
Okay.
Right.
And one of the things which was I misquoted because we met with you in your office about it was that it appeared as though the district was going to offer some kind of rebate to people who would take out surge pumps in their evaporative coolers as opposed to a drip system.
Bleed off system.
Bleed off system. And we discovered in talking with you that that isn't exactly what went down.
Right. What actually happened, now the comment was made about disconnecting purge pumps, but we were having a discussion about a possible rebate program or maybe just getting information out to people about savings that could occur if you had a purge pump in your evaporative cooler. And one of the people in the meeting made a statement that they had disconnected their purge pump and saved water. Well, obviously you do. If you disconnect your purge pump, which is dumping water every 8 hours or so, you're going
and you don't have a bleed off.
And you don't have a bleed off.
You would save water.
You would save water, correct.
But you would destroy your cooler.
Correct. So the comment was made about I'm saving water by disconnecting my purge pump. Maybe we should offer money to disconnect purge pumps. And I think it got taken out of that context to the fact that we were going to offer a rebate program, which we never had discussed prior to that workshop. So when you gentlemen came in and talked to me, I had some research I had done on the internet. It caused me to look at that data again, and in looking at it, I wanted to confirm that what I had said was in fact correct in the last time I was here. So I looked on some information on the internet again, and it confirmed, obviously, you could have a bleed, which continuously takes water through a tube. The calculations I saw for that was about I think about 4.5 gallons per hour. I'm sorry, 4.5 gallons per hour.
Yeah, per hour.
And if you had a purge pump, which dumps water, say, every 8 hours, if you figure that on a per hour basis, it was actually about 3.5. So about 1.2 gallons per hour is saved. Again, the data that I saw said a typical operation of an evaporative cooler during the summer season is about 2,100 hours. And you were saying you run yours 24 hours a day all during the summer. Well,
yes.
I don't. It's on a thermostat. So the 2,100 seemed kind of reasonable.
Mine's on a thermostat too. It just never reaches that.
Depends on your setting.
Yeah.
But mine does shut off. So the 2,100 seemed reasonable. So if you assume 2,100 hours in a cooling season and that savings of 1.2 gallons per hour, you come up with 2,520 gallons per cooling season that you're saving per cooler. So if we do just a couple calculations, if we were to have 2,500 coolers in town that we equipped with a purge pump, we would be saving 6,300,000 gallons of water, which is about 17 acre-feet. If we had 10,000 of these coolers that we put purge pumps in, you get up to almost 74 acre-feet, which is about 1% of the total water that the district pumped in 2013. We pumped 7,512 acre-feet, something like that. So if you took 74 acre-feet, it's pretty significant.
Yeah, right. That's a lot of water.
Reduction for just that simple thing.
Mm-hmm. So, and something that I might also add, which I'm guilty of, I have to fix that, but the question is, what do you do with that water that is either being bled off, or even better yet, you're using a purge pump. Now what do you do with that water?
Well, what I do personally is I have a hose coming out of my cooler going over to a tree that I have, and I water that tree.
And that's a good idea.
Right.
You know, right now I'm dumping into my vents, or into my standoff pipes, going down into the sewer. Not really a good idea. We should always also encourage people to use that water.
Absolutely.
As opposed to just...
Absolutely. So, you know, this is all preliminary talking about this rebate. We were even talking within staff about, well, if people just knew the savings they could achieve, maybe they would do it on their own. Looking at the website for Home Depot, a purge pump with tax is probably about $60.
Yeah, and it's actually sometimes less than that.
It may be. So, I mean, if just people knew that that was a potential savings that they could accomplish, maybe they don't need that incentive.
Yeah, because they're really not that expensive
Right.
for what they save you.
Right.
They'll pay for themselves in the first year, and they'll last a good number of years. I think I've had a number of mine 6, 7, 8 years, and they're still going.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to clarify that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw the retraction a couple of days later, but yeah, so.
Okay.
And then there's also been discussion, I don't know if it was at this meeting or before, of consideration of raising the rates, water usage rates.
Yes. Every few years, the district looks at its forecast, forecasted expenses, forecasted capital projects. They do a cost of service study, which we did last year, 2014. And then you look at the revenues that you're revenue stream that you need to bring in to pay for your maintenance operations, your projects. As a district, we want to be fiscally strong, stable, so that we're kind of paying as we go. We don't want to get into a lot of debt. So when you're looking at the rates, you're wanting to factor in the fact that you have to pay for upkeep on the system capital project. So to your point, we did a cost of service study in 2014. The proposal, which is being made to the board, and there will be a public hearing at the board meeting February 9th on a Monday night at the district office at 6 o'clock. We're encouraging public to come or to provide feedback via email. There's ways on our website that you can provide feedback if you can't be at the meeting. But the proposal as it stands right now, we are looking at, we've got almost $26 million worth of capital projects in the next 10 years. Almost 22 million of those are in the next 5 years. So there's a lot to be done. Some of the major projects we have, we're looking at a new tank, a new reservoir on the east side. We call it our east side A zone.
We're going to have to cut you off.
Okay.
We got to go to break, but we'll
Okay.
get back to this
All right.
right after our break. Stay
Okay.
tuned. You're listening to Thursday night edition of Ridgecrest Talk. We're here with Don Zdeba from the Water District. We'll be right back.
Talking water. And welcome back to our second segment, Ridgecrest Talk Thursday evening edition. I'm Robert Eierman, along with Al Huey, and we're talking with General Manager of the Water District, Mr. Don Zdeba. And you were telling us about the
Capital projects.
capital projects relative to raising rates and so on.
So some of the significant projects that we have upcoming in the next few years, we have a tank we're going to build on the east side. It's called, we have 5 pressure zones, A zone through E zone. As you go up in elevation, it's A through E. A zone is the most populous. We anticipate a need for more fire protection. You have to have so much water that's in storage for fire protection, so that's going to require another reservoir. To build that reservoir, to build the pipeline to that reservoir is a $5.5 million project. We're also looking at about $3.7 million for an automated metering infrastructure system. We're in the process of putting together a pilot test. This is what you've, I'm sure, heard of, similar to smart meters, where
I thought the district already had those.
that was drive-by. This will be meters that send the signals to collectors, and the collectors send the signals to a central point, which would be the Water District office.
Oh, okay.
And it gives customers the ability to monitor their use, much like you can with Southern California Edison. You can get online and check your usage and your bill.
Gotcha.
You can do the same thing there. It has the capability to do, has such features as we can do reports to see if there's continuous usage over 24 hours,
So if
which
there's a
would
leak or
indicate there
something.
might be a leak. Or,
Right,
and,
right.
and we can send out, based on that, send a text message to you, send an email to you, get you a phone call.
Cool.
So that's the project that we're working on. That's $3.7 million to get that in. We're also looking at again, this is based on perhaps population growth, but a well 35, which is $2.7 million to drill. We're anticipating over the next few years probably having to replace one of our existing wells. That's about a $2 million expense. So all these projects go into that almost $26 million over the next 10 years. And so to do that, what's being proposed, if we were to fund that as we go, our customers would not like how high the rates would go. So as sort of an alternative, what's being proposed is 3 years of rate increases, and then in 2018 we would take out a $10 million 20-year loan, assuming at 4%, to help kind of ease the pain. But we're looking for the next 3 years about a 4.1 increase the first year, 4.1%, 3.5 the next 2 years. So we are looking at rate increases over the next 3 years. That's being proposed. Again, nothing's set. A public hearing on February 9th. But
when was the last rate increase?
The last rate increase was almost 2 years ago. There was a rate increase that was scheduled to take place last February. The board, we looked at our finances, and the board decided not to implement that rate increase. So as a result of that, we have seen a little bit of decline in our revenue that we anticipated getting, but that decline has been offset by a decrease in spending and expenses.
Okay.
So the district is financially strong, and that is our objective, is to be financially strong. And that's why we're looking at making sure some of the assumptions in this cost of service study were that we would see a 10% decline due to conservation. That 10% decline is the equivalent of almost $700,000 to the district. But with the drought entering likely its 4th year and more pressure from the state and locally to conserve, I mean, we're looking at, again, just an assumption that people are going to cut back another 10%. So we want to make sure that we take that into account. We're also factoring in 3% inflation each year, annual inflation, when we're looking at our revenues and trying to figure out what it is we need to meet our commitments. So that's what's going to be proposed February 9th. Could be modified. The information's out there. We did put notices in the newspaper as required, the Prop 218 notices. We've on our website right now, if you go to the website, iwvwd.com, the cost of service study is on there. People can pull it up and look at it and actually read through the justification for some of these proposals. Some of the things in the proposal, we're looking at narrowing our tiers of rates. And you get water bills, I'm sure, so you see there's 7 tiers. Well, we're looking at, it makes billing more complicated. We're looking at simplifying that, narrowing it down to 4 tiers. We would basically have a new tier number 1. Currently it's 0 to 500 cubic feet is the tier 1. We're looking at expanding that to 0 to 7. And what that would encompass would be, assuming there are 2 people in the residence using an evaporative cooler. That's why we added the extra 200 cubic feet. So the first 2 tiers are conservation, intended to promote conservation. The second tier in this proposal would combine what was our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th tiers. Again, conservation, focus on conservation. It assumes there are 5 people in the house with 6,000 square feet of xeriscape. That would meet their needs. The 3rd and 4th tiers. The 3rd tier is now used to be our 5th and 6th tiers, and then the 4th tier remains the same. It's anything over 4,500 cubic feet. So that's in the proposal, going from 7 tiers down to 4. We're also looking at most of our meters, over 60% of them, are 3/4 inch meters, and that's pretty much the water industry standard, and we're wanting to standardize it. We have some 5/8 meters out there, but the 5/8 inch meters are on 3/4 inch lines, so there's a transition. So you're really getting, if you have a 5/8 inch meter, you're pretty much getting the benefit of a 3/4 inch meter in terms of flow capability. So we're standardizing on the 3/4 inch meter, and because it's going to mean an increase for those that currently have 5/8 as we transition to 3/4. We want to phase it over in the next few years and just gradually increase that 5/8 until we get to 1 rate for a 3/4. So that's in the proposal. And let's see, there's a third thing in the proposal. It was the tiered, reducing the tiers, the 3/4 inch meter, And the third thing's escaping me now. Maybe I'll think of it later.
But this is promoting, you mentioned trying to get people to conserve. And recently we had Supervisor Mick Gleason that we interviewed. And he made a statement which was quite surprising, actually, about the whole water, I hate to use this word, but that's what's been bandied around, crisis here in California, that you can't conserve your way out of this. And so I see where common sense is don't waste water. But to give any kind of benefit to people or not penalize them for not conserving, some people are questioning that, you know. So when we come back, we're going to go to break. When we come back, we'll talk about the water crisis here in California. We have, what now, 4 years of a drought?
We're going into our fourth
year.
Fourth year.
Yeah.
But we might be pulling out of it here. We got good snowfall this year. And
3 seconds.
Okay.
We got to go.
All right, we'll be back. I didn't hear the 3.
Okay. And welcome back to our final segment this evening on Ridgecrest Talk. We'll continue our discussion on water with Mr. Don Zdeba. You had come up with the third item, which you didn't.
Which I thought I'd forgotten, but I hadn't. The third item was changing that first tier from 0 to 500 cubic feet up to 0 to 7. So
Okay.
I did remember.
And then, if approved, at the next meeting, I guess there's the possibility that the rate increase would be overall 4.1%?
The first year, 4.1%.
And then
3.5
the next 2
subsequent
years.
Right.
Okay.
So we're
Total
looking at 11%.
No, 4.5 and 3.5.
Close.
Oh, the 3
3
years.
point-
I'm sorry, you're
over
right,
3
you're
years.
right.
Getting up to a little over 11%.
Now, the board can do what they did with this current rate proposal, and that's the third year they decided not to. But we have to look at our finances. So, again, we're proposing the 4.1, 3.5, 3.5. It could be we get to year 2, year 3. Things are looking good. We're not maybe having to do a project we thought we would have to do. Sometimes we put placeholders in the budget. For example, a replacement well. We don't know when a well is going to fail, so we put a placeholder in there, $2 million for a replacement well. You know, we don't know for sure what year it's going to fail, but it's there, so maybe we don't need that. And we can, I'm just making a point that it is possible, and it has been done as recently as last February, that the rate increase wasn't implemented.
So going back to Supervisor Gleason again, he was talking about what's coming down from the state being mandated and these new commissions or boards that are going to have to be created and put in place to reach sustainability. And one of the things that was discussed having to do with ag is putting meters on wells for these agriculture farms. And Robert and I got to talking about that, and when they have to, you might not be aware of it, but the state constitution.
They're going to have to change the state constitution.
Yeah, that's the way it reads. The water on the property of a agriculture property belongs to the property owner.
That's correct.
And then for somebody to come in and monitor that seems like they're violating that person's constitutional protections.
Well, it's not saying that they can't use the water. It's just getting the information on how much water are they pumping. And that is one thing, as I believe Supervisor Gleason made clear, that when this groundwater sustainability agency is formed, that is one of the powers they will have, is to say, if you have a well, we need to have a meter on your well to see how much you're pumping. They also will have the power to collect revenue. I don't want to use the word tax. Collect revenue.
If you use too much.
Or if there is such a thing as a pump tax. In some states, some areas have a pump tax where no matter what you pump, I mean, there are limits. Private well owners generally don't fall under this. 2 acre-feet or less a year is usually pretty minuscule. But if you pump water, based on how many acre feet you pump, you'll pay a rate per acre foot. And that is what some states, some districts do.
And I understand that, but when we have in the California Constitution that as long as it's beneficial and reasonable, you can take water out of your own well.
Up to a point until you start affecting your neighbors, and that's in the water law too. You can't,
yes,
you can't adversely. You can't just put something in and just pump and pump and pump because you have a
right.
well on your property when you're sucking down.
Because then you break the criteria of reasonable.
Exactly.
You've gone past
reasonable
that.
use.
But if we have somebody out there that's has agricultural land and they have a well and they're now planting stuff where they hadn't before they were getting ready to, I don't see how you can constitutionally stop them from doing that as long as they're not impacting their neighbors and as long as what they're doing is beneficial, which certainly raising crops on an agricultural land is beneficial.
Under current water law, that is the case, sure.
You say that under current water law. Does that mean that you anticipate?
Well, this groundwater sustainability management, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, the legislation that was signed September 16th, gives basins, especially the medium and high risk basins, and those basins that are in critical overdraft, the opportunity to bring that basin in sustainability. And so that, in many cases, if you're in severe overdraft, it's going to impact everybody that's pumping in that basin.
Okay, but our basin, we're not in severe overdraft.
We are not defined by the Department of Water Resources,
right.
We are not in critical overdraft. We are a medium risk basin at this point. Now, part of the legislation was that the Department of Water Resources was to reassess that because they're doing that based on a ranking that was done years ago, and things have changed, obviously. They were supposed to have had that done by January of this year, and it was very unreasonable request to have that done. So the Department of Water Resources basically said, we can't do that. So they're going to continue with the current rankings, and we are medium risk. And I think they've got another year to do another study, and we have input into that determination. If we feel like the boundaries that are currently defining this basin are incorrect, we can provide them with information that we think it may change. I'm not saying we do think, but there is some flexibility there, and they are considering local input.
Now, how local are these committees of the agency going to be? Are they going to be like over in Bakersfield?
Oh no, it would be an agency formed from stakeholders in this valley.
Okay.
And you were mentioning that they have regular meetings, right? And could you tell us when those are?
Oh, that's not. We're kind of getting a different subject.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm confused.
What you're asking about, I think, is you were asking where could the public go to get information about water issues?
Yes.
And I would suggest rather than go to the water board, the water district board meetings, which people are invited to go to, obviously,
right.
But the main information there is district business. Now, if you're interested in valley-wide basin groundwater information, the Indian Wells Valley Cooperative Groundwater Management Group has a regular meeting the third Thursday of every month, 1 o'clock at the Water District office in the boardroom. And those meetings involve the signatories to the existing Cooperative Groundwater Management Plan, which include the Navy, Searles Valley Minerals, the county, Kern County Water Agency, BLM, the city of Ridgecrest. So that's where you're going to go to get information.
All right, folks, if you're interested in this issue, which is a pressing issue in California and certainly here, attend those meetings. And join us again next week where we'll continue to talk about water. Thanks for joining us tonight.
See you next week, folks.